Hey, thanks for watching the video. If you have any comments or any questions that need a quick response, do not leave them in the comments section here. Go to my website, becomingagoodman.com, and send me a message there that I can respond to more quickly. I will not be back on YouTube for at least 2 to 4 weeks after this video posts. Meditation does not mean mental prayer to a lot of people. I didn't start participating in mental prayer until I started taking classes with the Avila Institute, at least not in a formal, structured way. There were plenty of times where I would be praying the Liturgy of the Hours or the Rosary, and something would catch my attention, but I would always push past it. I understood through these classes that when you feel that pull towards a specific word or a specific line, it's Jesus wanting you to stop there and be there with him in that moment. So I think people it's important that people understand what mental prayer is, and that they understand that I can only base my understanding on, obviously, what I've learned, and most of what I've learned has been through Dan Burke and through the Avila Institute. And their understanding is that having a set time each day in a set place allows your body to enter into prayer more easily, because it knows that when you're in this space at this time, this is what you're here for. And having a specific amount of time that you do it for, and all of that is, within your state of life. Obviously, if you're working till midnight and you need to get up late because you need sleep and you can only do this for 10 minutes, God will work with you within those 10 minutes. If you have more time because of your job, like me, who has a more leisurely job, as some people have put it, leisurely. I am a hairstylist, so then if you want to draw closer to Christ, spending more time with him in mental prayer will help you draw closer to him. But I think it's important that people understand what meditation means, because meditating, like yoga meditating, that kind of meditating, is not what is meant when they are encouraging that in that goal.
Yeah, and I'm just going to start off by saying I'm by no means a role model when it comes to mental prayer or meditation. Garrett's helped me a lot with it. I try to, if nothing else, get up at the same time every morning and just give myself 20-30 minutes where I might read the gospel for the day. I have a book that I'm going through by Saint Jose Maria Escrivá. Very small. I might read a page or two of that, find something, and just try to focus on that. And then ultimately, I'm a mess. My brain just goes to all the things I have to do that day. But I'm still trying, and I'm getting in the habit of doing it. And
showing up.
I'm showing up.
Right.
And that's, I think, one of the biggest parts of it. And God can work through that. Even if my mind is wandering and I look and it's my time, I have to start getting ready for the day, that's not to say that there's no grace that comes just because I wasn't completely focused the whole time. So it's something I'm still learning a lot, but I know a lot of fruit can come from it.
Individual spiritual direction. That's pretty self-explanatory. You need to have a spiritual director. I don't think it's for Courage members. I don't think it is something that should be thought of as optional. I don't think the goals in general should be thought of as optional. I mean, being part of Courage means you are pursuing these goals imperfectly. I'm very imperfect. Brian is very imperfect. We do things well for some time, and then sometimes we don't. And, so nobody's saying anyone has to be perfect. But these goals are there for a reason. I cannot trust myself to see things clearly. Once again, Dan Burke, in one of the classes that I took, said we all have blind spots. Your spiritual director is there because he is seeing you from the outside. We have all sorts of distorted filters that we can put in place that help us see ourselves. Dan Burke, what does he say sometimes? That people tend to see themselves as what they want to be rather than what they are. My spiritual director many times has had to correct me because I thought I was doing something that was helping me grow in holiness, and they felt that that wasn't what was best for me. Obviously, you need to be able to trust the person. It's not something you need to be able to do. You need to make a choice. If you believe that you've been directed to this director, then you have to make the conscious choice to follow what they say to you, even if you don't agree, even if it doesn't feel right. But I think having a spiritual director is not something that anyone who is pursuing holiness can do so without.
And that being said, I know it's not necessarily easy to find a spiritual director. Priests understandably are incredibly busy, but there are others, even outside of the priesthood, who do offer spiritual direction. Now you want to make sure that you're not just going to any person. You want to make sure it's someone ideally that you already know and trust. But I think when you get to that place, it is something that I think a lot of times I see people in the group in Courage, fall into kind of the trap of doing very occasional or sporadic spiritual direction. And I think the danger in this is it can prevent us from really making continued progress, because we might get something we're working on, months go by, and then you're just kind of back to square one, or you forgot what the kind of focus was the last time you even went to spiritual direction. So, and I'm not saying I'm perfect about this either, I'm really not at all. But I know myself that, if you can try to go more regularly, and go being intentional about what you're bringing up and making sure that you're seeking, how can I grow? Not just about, well, this is going on in my life. That's something that's worth bringing up too. But ultimately, the end result should be, how can I be more like Christ?
And spiritualdirection.com has well-trained spiritual directors. And one of the things that I learned was that spiritual direction originally was done by people outside of the priesthood. So if you can get a priest, that's ideal, but don't think that because the person helping you is not a priest, or all you can find is a lay person, that person cannot be worked through by the Holy Spirit just as much as a priest. Frequent attendance at Mass and the frequent reception of the sacraments. This, again, to me, just has to be something that you set as a non-negotiable. Dan Burke, again, said when he when he plans his day, all of his spiritual commitments are written down first, and then everything else comes around it. Now, obviously, once again, because of his job and because of my job, I can do that. Because I cut hair for a living, I can say I'm stopping at this time and this time to pray, and if clients don't like it, then tell them not to come see me. I don't
think that would go over so well with my patients.
No, since he's a nurse, those people might die, so that would not be ideal. But as much as possible, I mean, most people, if you talk to them, and they'll say they don't have time for certain things, and then you ask them how they spend their time, you find that they have time. If they went to bed earlier, if they made certain sacrifices, they do have time. They don't necessarily see it that way, and that goes back to fraternal guidance and correction, that if someone is trying to grow in holiness, if you're their friend, you will, in a kind way, which Brian would have to explain to me what that kind way would be, because my ways are not normally kind and gentle, that you would help them see that you do have time for this. And it is beneficial to be able to participate in the sacrifice of the Mass every day and receive the gift of the Eucharist.
I would also add that I think frequent reception of sacraments, going to Mass regularly, going to confession, going to adoration, all of these things help us to have more of an ordered life in general, properly ordered life. I think we live in a society, not just in Courage, but just the world in general, there's just so much disorder. There's still a lot of disorder in my life, but where if we do, have these things that kind of become an anchor of our day, something we can depend on day after day, God works through these things. We do have a sense of order and purpose in our life, and it helps us to better see how God is at work.
The next goal is To
Foster
foster
spirit
spirit of fellowship. Fellowship.
fellowship. Yes.
Fellowship. What does that mean? That's something we all, I think, in general need help learning, not just in Courage. But because we're talking about Courage, we need help from the chaplains to learn. And a lot of the chaplains have learned in their seminary training what it means to have fellowship with their fellow priests. We need to be taught that. Because we very easily, as men who have, especially if we have lived the gay identity in any way, a lot of us, well, it's not, I shouldn't say that. Men in general seem to have the idea that